And we're back. You guys thought that we were going to get an installment this month, and only 3 to 4 weeks after this movie came out, which, again, I've tried so hard to forget about it, but I couldn't because our guy was in it. The actor subject for the Actors Hall of Fame, Talkin TV 2024 edition for February. Like I said, we got a lot of big stars out of the way in 2023. Like, I was going over our list that we did. I'm like, wow, if we had hit Downey Jr. in August, we would have run the gamut.
The ones we've done already.
So we got Joaquin Phoenix. We got Ben Affleck. We got Steve Carell. We got Tom Cruise. We got Paul Dano. We got DiCaprio. We got Bradley Cooper. And we got Natalie Portman to kick off this year. And now, Dustin, with that being said, who are we doing for the Actors Hall of Fame Talkin TV edition for the month of February?
We're doing Sam Rockwell.
Yes, sir. One of your favorite actors as well. Would you say he's in the top 10 for you?
Yes.
All right, awesome. And as you see, one of the movies that may or may not be on one of your lists is actually on the poster back there. Just wanted to call attention to that real quick before we started on the February edition of the Talkin TV Hall of Fame. This is Sam Rockwell. Stay tuned.
Dude.
All right. I don't know what happened there. That was
weird. Why did it cut off?
That was weird. That's never happened before. I'll have to figure out what happened there. That was a very, very strange technical difficulty, but we're going to roll with it. It's fine. We're live. We're rolling with it live. All right. So, Dustin, Sam Rockwell.
Yes.
Talk us through it. You always go through your, how you got involved with these certain actors, where you first became aware of them. So, when did you first become aware of Sam Rockwell as an actor? What is it that drew you to him?
Probably the late 2000s, where he started to star in more movies, in independent films. I started noticing him, but he was always somebody I was kind of aware of. I started seeing him in I saw Charlie's Angels, and he was the villain in that. And, Everybody's Fine with Robert De Niro, which is a remake of an Italian film. And there wasn't that many movies that Galaxy Quest I saw when I was really little, and I don't really remember it well enough to say I'll go more on Galaxy Quest soon, don't get me wrong. And then Iron Man 2 was really his big Hollywood role for my age, to for me to be introduced to him as a big name actor now. And he was really awesome in that movie too. So when I started to just binge a bunch of movies and stuff in high school, most of them were Sam Rockwell movies, and whether I like the movie or not, he's always phenomenal. It's he's literally never bad in any movie. Even I'm looking at the little small tiny roles, or even when he has to play it more broad in The Green Mile and things, he's never bad in a movie, and he always knows what to do, and he has terrific instincts. And I just read a quote from him earlier today where he's just I believe every good actor should be an anarchist. And I think that's a phenomenal quote.
Yes.
And I saw him, and I have merch upon merch, and I got this is the first Broadway play I saw, and I've loved Sam Rockwell well before this, but it was really gratifying to see him live. Locked eyes with him at the end for 2 seconds, I think. So that was sick. Sam Rockwell rules. And he dances and everything, and he's just fucking awesome. And it's really fucking sad that he isn't more, despite winning an Oscar, and everything, and we'll go through why he did or didn't deserve it. He did. But
he did.
Yeah, but
without question.
But it's sad that he hasn't really eclipsed his he's the actor's actor, and and every actor loves him, obviously, and they love working with him. He's just not technically a star. Even we were running down the names that we've covered. Paul Dano's not probably the most comparable, I would say, but even he, I feel has headlined more movies like more bigger movies than, or have had more vital roles in bigger movies than Sam Rockwell has in the Hollywood system, at least. But when it comes to independent films, for the most part, and there's a couple studio movies sprinkled in here, which, of course,
Of course.
but that just shows his variety as an actor. But even like all of these honorable mentions, I'm going to go through before we get into the list, and yeah, it's just like he just has a great range and just has great taste and just had a good agent. And like obviously the guys that get the most work probably are like amongst the most talented, like a Paul Giamatti or a Philip Seymour Hoffman or even a David Strathairn, who I've realized is like in so many fucking movies. It's
Hmm.
like fucking insane.
Yeah.
But like these guys, like there's a reason why they get work, like Stanley Tucci and why Billy Crudup, like all these people are like friends and everything, and it just makes total sense. And they all kind of mentored each other and like gave each other like good tips and everything, and they just knew how to act and be naturalistic and kind of just be groundbreaking and kind of be like the 70s sort of the first like group of like character actors since the 70s, I would say, to really encompass that feel.
Yeah.
As and like we're gonna go through all these movies, like I said, like, but like he has such a wide array of films, good or bad, but he's always fucking hitting bangers in it, even in Argyle, which I know he said like he dances and everything, and Matthew Vaughn is really the closest director to like ruining that. But other than that, what's your opinion on Sam Rockwell? That was long enough for me.
No, no, I get it. Like I said, you can tell one of your favorites. No, Rockwell's an interesting one for me because he was, like I said, one that just for a long time I wasn't aware of. I think the first time I ever saw him in anything was probably where a lot of people my age saw him in something, which was Iron Man 2. I mean, he'd been acting and stuff for the entire decade. Like you said, Charlie's Angels, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Moon was when like he really started to make waves. I would say even amongst the indie crowd, he's in Assassination of Jesse James. But I feel like Iron Man 2 is where a lot of people my age really started to become aware.
And what one more thing, the biggest movie he's had as a Hollywood actor
There we go.
is
Is
Poltergeist,
Poltergeist.
the remake, which I
Yeah,
guess he's technically the lead of, but he's like the Craig T. Nelson of that, right? So
right,
like he's the star of it. He's the biggest name in the movie, and
right.
he's like the main character, kinda. So like, and even like me saying that, that's just so sad. He hasn't had like a prime like Nightcrawler
Yeah,
Hollywood
and
movie.
that's the thing is that like Rockwell is one of those guys
You have
where
an
again
independent movie. I'm an
well
idiot.
it's such a fascinating career because he is one of those guys where I think he really thinking back like you're right like even Paul Dano I feel like has stretched through and broken through into the mainstream in some way but Rockwell's one of those guys where even as big stuff as he's done and as many big name directors as he's worked with and as much acclaim as he's gotten and he has definitely gotten finally, after a long period of time, his fair share of acclaim with, back-to-back Oscar nominations, one win. It was almost triple. But, like, yeah, it's still weird to me how he's still kind of the character actor guy. Like, I'm really trying to think of, like, the biggest things that he's done in the last couple of years post-COVID, right, is he's
Post
got
Oscars,
post-Oscars, right? But really post-COVID as well, because he still had Vice, and then he had Jojo Rabbit and Richard Jewell all in the same year. But post-Oscars, what? He's got The Bad Guys. He's got
see how
Argyle,
they run.
and he's got See How They Run, right? With the Saoirse
Oh, and
Ronan one.
Trolls
And
World
Troll
Tour,
Tour. Like, that's the biggest things that he's got.
which he's the best part in too.
Right. But you're right. He's always consistently the best part of everything that he's in. He always brings a character actor sensibility to everything that he's done. And it's so interesting because we were talking the other night, I remember about like actors that really truly blend and change with each role that they have, right? And I was thinking a lot about Rockwell. I didn't have Rockwell initially on my list of guys that I told you
Oh,
about.
for sure, he totally should
And
be.
the thing that I realized about thinking back and going back through all the recent couple of movies that I've watched, I'm like, no, he really is different in every movie. Like he still has, like you said, he dances in everything. He's got like the Rockwell charm, but like he really does transfer from playing like really charming bad guys, but like sick-minded people to like just playing
Mhm.
really endearing, like I don't know what it is.
Naive.
He always manages to make his characters endearing every
Mhm.
time. Like
Yeah.
even when it's guys like who screw people over in movies, or even when it is like absolutely like the more that I think about it, like I think the Green Mile is really the only like truly despicable and irredeemable character that he's ever played. Like even the
Probably.
most malicious characters that he's played
Well,
always have that level of like endearment to them, I feel.
I mean, you could make it. I forget the details of that character and why he's even in prison to begin with. So I'll give you that. In sake of arguing, but Yeah, dude, he's just in so many like interesting role. Like
Yeah,
I just want to go through some of the movies that didn't make my list
right.
real quick. Like Safe Men, John Hamburg's directorial debut, if I'm not mistaken, which he co-starred with Paul Giamatti and Mark Ruffalo and Steve Zahn, and yeah, he was good in that, and he was a great George W. Bush in Vice. He's terrific as the maybe Nicolas Cage's shady best friend in Matchstick Men. It's great as one of the reporters, I believe, in Frost
Hmm.
Nixon. Terrific as the villain in Charlie's Angels. Like I said, he makes that movie like more, uh, honestly, more badass than it deserves to be called. But it's a slick little movie by McG, and probably the only one of his filmography. And then, The Way Back is a movie I didn't even like, and he's still like really likable in that, and he's supposed to be. But that's just a very tonally confused and weird movie. I don't even know. Did you watch that? You ever
I
see
did
The
not
Way?
watch that. No.
I think you love that movie.
Yeah, that seemed like a movie that I would like more than you in general. Like, it always surprised
Way
me when you
more,
told me that you did not way more. It always
way
surprised
more.
me that when you told me that like you didn't like, because I'm like, really? I'm like, all the
We'll give
people
it
that
like a four and a half.
I'm like, how
or
the hell?
something.
I'm like, I remember being still surprised. I'm like, how the hell are Steve Carell and Sam Rockwell in a movie that you don't like that much? I'm like, that's crazy to say the
I,
least.
I'll give you a hint. Liam James
That guy.
and lack of Alexander Payne,
Right, with just Jim Rash and Nat Faxon writing and
who
directing, right?
hasn't, who haven't proven that they've had the juice or the
No,
sauce
no.
since
Meanwhile,
winning the Oscar.
yeah.
But whatever.
Meanwhile, Alexander Payne with freaking holdovers this year, single-handedly proving that he's still one of
And
the
like you
greats.
said, Jojo Rabbit is another honorable mention of mine because I just have to go through all these different roles that he does
Yeah,
before we get into the top 10 because I'm sure you're going to have some of these on here. So I'll just name two more. But Jojo Rabbit is such a shitty and manipulative and unfunny movie, in my opinion. He's still the best part about it. And it's not just by Sam Rockwell bias. He adds empathy to a Nazi in this
yeah,
fucking
which
movie.
is crazy, and that also adds to like a weird narrative that was surrounding Rockwell at the time that we're gonna get into because like. That was
Okay.
well. Actually, you know what? I'm going to talk about it now. You remember that period, like after he won the Oscar for Three Billboards, and then with Vice, then into JoJo, when
Yes.
everyone in our circles thought he was like low key a racist, and we were
Oh
all like,
yeah.
"You guys are fucking idiots! Like he's
Yeah. What
not a racist."
No,
You
maybe
remember
he's
that?
yeah, because a lot of people that get cast as racist in movies aren't as good as Sam Rockwell when he
Right,
plays racist. That's the
right.
thing.
Well, like, what was the
They're like,
closest comparison to that? Like the guy who played the one weird racist character in Black Klansman, that guy who was German, I think, in real life. You know,
oh,
with
that
the
I know
Felix
what you're talking
character.
about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was
He was
also in
in
the
The
Five
Five Bloods.
Bloods.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was thinking of somebody else too. Michael Rooker got those roles a little bit.
Yeah,
I
Michael
think.
Rooker did get those roles a lot, but Michael Rooker did a lot of other stuff too.
Oh, sure. I'm just saying, like, I hate it when people are just that simple minded to be like, oh yeah, he was in that Taraji P Henson movie. This is like the fifth, sixth, seventh time he's played a racist. I was like, yeah, because he's a great actor, and only
Yeah,
great actors should play racist characters so you believe them.
yeah. I mean, great actors should only be the only kinds of
Oh yeah,
actors that work, but
no, I agree, obviously,
yeah.
but really the last honorable mention I want to cover is the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. He is very good in that movie, even though he's like the fifth or sixth best performance in it because that has a terrific
Yeah,
ensemble.
I look. This is still like a movie that's very high on my bucket list that like I want to watch
Yeah,
because like Pitt,
it
Affleck,
was for me as well, and
yeah,
I kind of
Rockwell, Renner, like
uh,
the amount of people that are in here is
Paul
nuts.
Schneider kind of runs away with the movie
Which is
almost.
kind of insane when you think about it, considering the
Yeah.
fact that like they got rid of him on Parks and Rec for being the gym stand-in.
And honestly, on rewatch, he gets better each time for me. But maybe I'm a Brandanowitz head. But one more thing before we go back to you, Dominic, I
Yes.
just want to say he was almost Iron Man. It was
Yes, he
between
was.
him and
Yes, he
Robert
was.
Downey Jr.,
Yes, he was.
which is an incredible fun fact. And also really disheartening and makes me like question reality, be like, what would the world have
Yeah,
been if
what would the
Sam
world have been like?
Rockwell would Robert Downey Jr. gone back on drugs? Like, what would have
Right.
happened?
Like what are the possibilities here?
I don't know, dude. Let's get into that
Yeah,
infinity.
let's get into that. Yeah, let's get into that because
Gauntlet.
I will admit Iron Man 2 is on my list and it is very, very high on my list. So I'll give that as a little spoiler. But so Dustin, I mean, Rockwell's your guy, but so you want me to start off?
I'll start it off.
All right, I was about to say, I'm like for your guy. I mean, come on.
I kind of gave it away before, but Galaxy Quest is definitely on the list.
Yeah,
I would say
Galaxy Quest is
Galaxy
great.
Quest is number
It's
10,
great.
and yeah, he's so good at what was his name in this? Guy
Guy,
Flegman.
yeah, I
Yeah,
just remember that his name being Guy. That's the only thing I
Guy
remember,
Flegman.
and it's
And he adds like this is what I'm talking about. This is how like Hollywood noticed him as a great character actor, and that's it. And that's pretty
yes,
much what you could say about Philip Seymour Hoffman too. He didn't get that many Hollywood big starring roles either, you know. But Sam Rockwell, he could just play a thankless role, reactionary role like Guy Flegman on paper, and give him so much depth and make him one of the most memorable and funniest aspects of that movie and makes the movie better and better and better upon rewatch, amongst other things in that film, even though it's led by a miscast, Tim Allen. Take that, Blake. Anyway, yeah, Alec Baldwin would have been better. Sue me.
yeah, he would have.
Sue me. Yeah, really good movie. Sam Rockwell adds so much to a nothing character that you care for him. He plays a guy that could have been so disposable, but they make him one of the most sympathetic characters. And I don't know whether it's the writing or the performance, but I'm pretty sure it's the performance. So
Yeah,
Galaxy
agree.
Quest.
Yeah, that's very, very shortly to appear on my list. Yeah, my number 10 is The Bad Guys, which is a movie that I will admit would not have been on this list if I had been able to get to a couple of others. But just the fact that I'm pretty sure, so Rockwell's only had a few animated voiceover performances, and the fact that this is not even really a top tier DreamWorks movie, I feel like it holds up because of the animation and because of, like I said, it is a solid movie for sure. But it is the cast that sends it over the top, particularly that of Rockwell and Mark Maron. But the fact that Rockwell as the lead in this is still just as endearing, just as memorable, just as funny. Pretty sure he even has his character dance in this, which he does. It's all the Rockwell shticks and tropes brought to an animated character, but it's his character. You can tell this is a character that's modeled around him, and it really works. Like I said, this is very clearly based on a children's story, but this movie reminds me of like old DreamWorks in the sense of where it's got the references, it's got the slick humor, but it's also got the heart of like deep down, like these characters are all broken and just kind of need each other. And like, I particularly love how in an animated DreamWorks movie, we finally get a pairing like Rockwell and Maron, and they're absolutely spectacular. The rest of the supporting cast, Zazie Beetz as in everything is whatever, but this is weirdly enough probably the best that she's been in anything, which is kind of hilarious when you think about that. But yeah, I mean, the supporting cast is Awkwafina, Anthony Ramos, and Craig Robinson, who steals every scene that you hear his voice naturally. And then Richard Ayoade as the bad guy is also mega underrated. But yeah, I will admit, this is a little bit of a placeholder spot, but just to show how good Rockwell is, the fact that he voices a fucking talking wolf, and it's still like better than most voiceover performances that I hear on a daily basis.
Yeah, fine. This is probably technically the biggest like studio lead movie he got. He was also the lead technically in G-Force also.
Yeah, that's right. That is, like I said, not the first time he's voiced animated. And again, another movie where he has no business. Dude, the amount of people that were in G-Force, like Nicolas Cage is in that movie. Fucking, is it Zach Galifianakis? Yeah, that's a weird movie. 2009, man. Weird. Yeah, weird year. Oh, man. What's your number 9?
The Sitter.
Oh, wow, that's low. I thought it would be higher for you on this list.
No, come on. Sam Rockwell has so many great performances, and I had to catch up on a few, and I have. So, but it didn't get bumped too high up, but The Sitter is my number 9. It's directed by, keep it up, Dominic, the fucking title. It's directed by David Gordon Green, and it's, to me, a sneaky comedy cult classic favorite of mine, at least in my opinion. Not a lot of people bring it up, but they should. And when you do, they usually don't shit on it, in my opinion. They usually are like, oh yeah, that movie was pretty funny. He's funny. Yeah, because it's a good movie. That's why. Yeah. And to me, it's better than Adventures of Babysitting, because to me, I feel like it sets up its main character better than Adventures of Babysitting, where she, reluctantly agrees to babysit, but she has nothing else to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the reason why she has to like leave the house with the kids is so preposterous and like unbelievable. And like her goofy friend played by Penelope Ann Miller is just like saying, my parents will kill me. At that point, if I was Elizabeth Shue, I'd be like, yeah, your parents won't kill you. Okay. Just get them to pick you up.
That sounds like many conversations that we've had in the past.
No, because that's insane. Like that's such a I know it would be like there would be no movie, but like it's more believable in The Sitter when Ari Grainer's like, okay, I'll give you pussy if you get me cocaine. It's like, yeah, I didn't want to babysit in the first place. I guess I'll bring the kids. It's funnier.
Yes.
It's a more darker, satirical take on the material, and I like it. Okay, sue me. Sam Rockwell plays a great, antagonist character in this as Carl. And him and JB Smoove are hilarious together. I love the way Sam Rockwell, his physicality is fantastic in this movie. Once you see it, like he really gets into it. He looks like grimy in this, one of his more grimier characters, surprisingly. And I just love his timing and rapport with Jonah Hill. And I just love how he says, "No, Griffith." And he's just like, you're so great. I love you. You're so shy. You're so shy. You remind me of my Aunt Shirley. I think I could quote the sitter. Yeah, Sam Rockwell's not the most quotable character in it, but he's definitely a memorable presence. And I just love how he like gets upset with a guy he cares about, even though he just met him. Like he's like, "Yeah, you're my." I just shot my third best friend in the world in the feet because he didn't listen to me. You're my eighth best friend in the world, and you stole from me. Like it's like lines like that will always stick in my head. And Sam Rockwell's fucking great in that movie. And yeah, it's a good movie. I don't care.
Man, that makes me want to watch it even more. Just
It
for
is
the
good.
that no, it sounds really good. Like I said, just the fact of it, like I even said this to you before. So I'm like, yeah, you got Rockwell and Jonah Hill, two of your favorite actors in one movie. I'm like, yeah, this was obviously going to be one of your favorites. My number 9 is your number 10, Galaxy Quest. I just watched this movie like a couple weeks ago, and yeah, this movie's fucking great. I feel like this is one of those movies that it works as both if you're a Star Trek fan and if you're not a Star Trek fan. Like me, I'm not a Star Trek fan, but as somebody who understands the tropes and tricks of the show, I was able to appreciate it even more because for me, I'm like, because if you're a fan of Star Trek and watching this, you're like, oh, this is like everything that I love, but like with more of a goofy kitsch, and it's sort of kind of better because I feel like when it comes to things like that, it kind of is better when they start making fun of it, because the people who made this clearly are fans of it and enjoy it. And if you're not a fan of stuff like me, you're like, oh, they're just making fun of it, and it's fucking hilarious as a result of it. Where the fact that Rockwell is what the 6th lead of this movie. Not even, like you got.
Honestly, I was just thinking, like I think he has more dialogue than Tony Shalhoub.
Pretty sure he does. Pretty sure he does.
Who's another like great character
he was
actor.
Phenomenal in this. But like the funniest thing I remember about Tony Shalhoub from the movie is how deadpan he is, and also that he makes out with the alien at the end, and the tentacles come out. But Rockwell's reaction to that, right? Yeah, exactly, with Missy Pyle, and Rockwell's reaction to that. Also, watching Rainn Wilson as one of the aliens at the beginning is
why is Missy Pyle always like playing like weird looking girls that like are oddly like romantic?
I don't know. Like, that was a thing like that she was doing.
Like no, literally between that and Dodgeball.
Dodgeball, yeah. I was like. Well, I was like, yeah, wasn't she also the mom in Tuck Everlasting, that movie that was based on the book that we read in 6th grade?
The mom in something.
I think that was it. I think it was Tuck Everlasting.
No, I used to get her confused with the actress who played the bitch like stepmom to be in The Parent Trap.
Oh yeah,
he does look a lot like that.
A lot like her, yeah.
But
back to Rockwell, yeah. Like I said, the fact of when you introduce him, the fact that he's just like a guest moderator at this panel, and then when they finally get recruited, he gets beamed up and he starts freaking out because like the whole thing with the aliens that is based on the show, and he's like, I was always just like the one-off guy that got killed. That means I'm gonna get killed like in real life, and just how he's freaking out about that the whole time. But he even talked about this like when he was doing the Variety like retrospective of his career. He's like, yeah, he's like, yeah, I'm taking it seriously, regardless of how funny the part is. And that's what makes it funnier. That and his camaraderie with the rest of the cast. Yeah. And the fact that, like I said, he is like taking a nothing part that has a lot of interesting character. Like I said, the fact of making fun of, again, the guy who was on one episode of the hit show and never really had a career afterwards, but is still kind of sort of remembered as a legacy. I feel like his character is the equivalent of like the guy who played fucking, what's his name? Sal, the lawnmower guy in The Sopranos, all of a sudden being inducted into like the real mob. And he's like, what the fuck? Like, I'm just the gardener guy. I was just the guy that got fucked over by these guys in the show. Now I'm getting fucked over by these guys in real life. I feel like that's what we are seeing with Rockwell's part in this movie. And he sells every single minute of it. Like,
because if you got like another, you could have like cast this role quite annoyingly, and the joke could have gotten old real quick with like a more annoying and like typical actor. Like if it was like sorry to shit on that, but if it was like Andy Dick or Pauly Shore or somebody like broad like
this
that,
would have been, but also this would have been a very different movie. And what I will say as well, and like I said, the only reason why, like I said, is the fact that it's not just Rockwell that like kind of single-handedly makes this movie. It is the fact that every element of this movie works. The fact that again, Sigourney Weaver is basically like, yeah, I only had a certain role in the show, and that was to basically tell you what the computer was saying. Alan Rickman just being the drenched up like Shakespearean actor who hates the part that made him famous. Fucking Tim Allen being the drunk schlubby captain who prioritized the celebrity counters and actually like has to be like a real. Even Justin Long in his bit part, and that being like his first movie too, as like the super fan that gets to live like every nerd's fantasy.
Fresh
and, like,
out of Vassar,
exactly, and help them say that. No, this movie's fucking great. Like I said, it's a nerd's wet dream, and it holds up beautifully. So Galaxy Quest absolutely has to be on here.
Oh yeah, it's just great. Like he just adds so much believability to that character, Sam Rockwell.
Yeah.
My number 8, it's a dark role, Dominic, and that's Snow Angels. Also directed by David Gordon Green, and that's a crazy. That's pretty funny actually. But yeah, Snow Angels is a movie that sort of interweaves a bunch of different characters. It co-stars Kate Beckinsale, Michael Angarano, Griffin Dunn, Nikki Katt, Tom Noonan, and Olivia Thirlby, a favorite of mine.
Yes.
Call me. Anyway, yeah, Sam Rockwell plays like a divorced dad, or he's like separated from his wife, played by Kate Beckinsale, and he's like losing his mind slowly but surely. And it's a very depressing movie. And yeah, who wouldn't lose their mind if they're getting divorced from Kate Beckinsale? And it's like, I can't see you anymore. It's like, and then who is she fucking in the movie? Nikki Katt, the most typecast piece of shit in every movie.
And it's like of all people, it's like, wow, she's gonna go with Nikki Katt over fucking Rockwell.
Don't worry about it. He still like beats the shit out of him. It's funny, so it's cool. That's still, but this is a super dark movie, and I don't want to spoil it. But there's good performances throughout, and it's really well directed, and not as rewatchable as The Sitter or Pineapple Express, but it's very good.
All right, Snow Angels. Yeah, this is one of a couple of like tiny ones that you've got on your list here. My number 8 is The Green Mile, which is again a movie that it's weird looking back at this movie in terms of Rockwell's movies, because obviously this movie has become a cult favorite, right? It's the Frank Darabont like 2-punch of the 1-2 hit that he had in the 90s with Shawshank, and then this movie. And this is I believe they were both kind of box office bomb, but they're both like tremendous cult hits. People love these movies. Obviously, it's got a tremendous cast of like these very big and warm and endearing figures like Tom Hanks and Michael Clark Duncan and David Morse and Barry Pepper. You know, right when he was starting to come up, right? And you've got Rockwell in here as like this absolutely despicable kind of redneck piece of shit character who is kind of in the jail, and they don't really tell you why. And the character ends up like kind of having an important place. Like what I'll say about the character itself is that the character's placement in the movie is kind of strange in terms of like he's basically revealed to be the guy that actually committed the crimes that Michael Clark Duncan is in prison for, but he died. Right. But they have no way of proving it, because the way they find out is through supernatural means, and he dies right before they have a chance to like ever actually bring him to trial.
Right.
So what's interesting, but it kind of ties into the theme of this whole movie, which is this whole movie is kind of about like everybody who comes to this place. I forget the name of the jail, but everybody who comes here is like their chances have kind of all passed them by. And like they're all kind of looking for redemption in this place that there ultimately is none. And the only people that end up coming by that are the people who end up leaving there, you know? And it's ultimately how they're still attempting to do good in a place of such evil. And Rockwell is not exactly the devil figure, but the fact that he is kind of the guy that's like the happiest one to be there at all times should probably tell you something. And the fact that he does play what kind of is a one-note character, like the character doesn't exactly have a lot of nuance to him and still sells the ever-loving shit out of it. Like it really, really impresses me in hindsight. It impressed me when I saw it. It impresses me in hindsight, especially when you consider this movie came out the same year as Galaxy Quest. They both came out in 99, which is unbelievable when you think about it. And there's a reason why, like, after this, like, his career really started to pick up after this year, you know? And like I said, and the next year in 2000 is when he got the first Charlie's Angels, and then that's when his career really starts to pick up. So this definitely had to be on this list. So The Green Mile, my number 8.
All right. My number 7, Mr. Right.
Yeah. So talk about this movie.
Directed by Paco Cabezas. This is a crime action comedy where it stars him and Anna Kendrick. Anna Kendrick's kind of miscast in this, which is sort of disheartening for me to say because I usually really like Anna Kendrick in most things, but she's okay in this. She mostly works because Sam Rockwell's her co-lead, and he plays a hitman who also dances all the time. And this movie is written by Max Landis.
I saw that. I saw that when I looked it up.
And it's probably one of the better. It's probably the second best Max Landis movie behind Chronicle. So it has a pretty good cast. It's a little ridiculous. I don't think there has been a director since Josh Trank to really nail Max Landis's vibe.
Yeah.
It's also disheartening to say that the Project X guy couldn't figure it out either with
Yeah.
American Ultra, which I just thought was okay. Not terrible or anything, but it was okay.
Yeah,
But
Trank and Landis, man, those guys, they did not work out well after
it's
that movie.
Sam Rockwell is hilarious in this movie, though, and he makes it like enjoyable to watch, and he kind of almost fools you into making you think, "Oh, this is this a better movie than I think?" No, it's not, but he is very good in it, and I definitely think I would recommend all of these movies just for his performance. That's how good of an actor he is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this one I want to watch this one. It just seemed fun just
Yeah,
based off the premise. Because the whole thing, right, is doesn't he kill all the people who hire him? Isn't that the shtick with him?
yeah,
Yeah. So that just sounded fun to begin with. It's like they pay him. Okay, then he picks up the gun. Boom. I'm just envisioning the scene from Seven Psychopaths where he's with what's her name, the blonde, sorry, Olga Kurilenko at the beginning. They just shoots
yes.
her out of nowhere. I'm just thinking that, but like it's the whole movie, you know. So I'm thinking of that. All right, moving on to my number 7. Richard Jewell, a movie that should not have been as good as it was, is what I will say. Because this is Clint Eastwood
That's
after
my number 6.
Really? Okay, so
Yeah.
then perfect. So we can just both just talk about it now. Look at that, how that lined up.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, a movie that should not have worked given Clint Eastwood's string of flops that he'd had before them. Because the movies that he had directed before this, keep track of it, were the movie right before this was The Mule. Then the movie right
Oh,
before
the
that
Mule.
was 1517 to Paris, my least favorite movie of that year. And then the movie before that was Sully. Actually, I think there might have been a movie in between that, which is
No, it was Sully. No, it was
and
Sully.
and then before that, you have American Sniper, which is good, not great. And then before that is his Jersey Boys, which even Frankie Valli has come out and said that he did not like Clint Eastwood's version, that it was clearly supposed to be Scorsese directing that movie. You, I know, are a fan of that movie, but sorry to rain on your parade. Frankie Valli is not a fan of that movie. But like I said, this is a movie based off of a real life story that you would be hard to remiss if you had missed this one. The story of the security guard who stopped a bombing at a concert in Atlanta, Georgia, and then as a result was, because they couldn't find any suspects, was framed as the guy who set off the bomb based off the fact of his lifestyle. And it's a really interesting movie because it's a movie that ultimately is not a typical Hollywood movie but again, through the combined efforts of Paul Walter Hauser and just bringing the ultimate fucking uncanny ability that he has to every role, and mixed with Sam Rockwell, who plays his lawyer that defends him, and those two have a really interesting friendship, kind of as far as how they came up, and their relationship, as it's explained, is absolutely beautiful. Yeah, this is a movie that I went back and actually saw a second time in theaters because I was that impressed with it. Like, because it employs Clint's typical one-take style, but the script and the acting all around is so good. Kathy Bates got a fucking Oscar nomination for this movie, which is hilarious in hindsight, but that's how good this movie was. Yeah. Again, in 2019, which is already a stacked year to begin with. Like, yeah, talk about this. This is your number 6.
Yes. I love him in this movie, first of all. And I think this movie is honestly one of the better Clint Eastwood films that I've seen. Admittedly, I have to see more of his movies. But I've seen a lot of the big ones, but I got to see a lot of the older ones, though. But Richard Jewell is like one of my favorite Clint Eastwood directed films, and I think Paul Walter Hauser is incredible in this movie. But Sam Rockwell adds another layer of brilliance to this story, and it just makes you empathize with the Paul Walter Hauser character. Just the way Sam Rockwell, just even when he's not talking in the beginning and he's just reflecting or like kind of talking to his girlfriend slash receptionist, and he's just sort of pondering like, I like that kid. And the way he defends him in the movie is like I just have like a soft spot for the way Sam Rockwell like acts and like when he's like defending somebody in a movie. I just
Yeah.
think it's super believable, and he's like hilarious in
Yeah.
this movie
And it's
too.
got the underdog nature too. Also,
Yeah,
the fact that like when he goes up against John Hamm, who is like such the
or Olivia
stereotypical
Wilde. Yeah,
Hollywood leading man, or Olivia Wilde, right? Who was like, I don't know what kind of a performance she was giving, but like I feel like the note that Clint gave her was like, take the
I don't know.
craziest, most coked out person that you've ever seen or played and up that to 11.
To me, that might be one of her better performances. To be honest with you, I think that performance has grown on me too. That's a good movie.
It really is.
I really like that movie.
Yeah. It's one of those movies that you think back to it and you're like, wow, that movie was a lot better than I
Yeah.
remember. And then you watch it and you're like, no, it was just as good as I remember because it was a good fucking
If
movie,
not
you
a
know?
little better. If
Like
not
I
a
said,
little
it's just
better.
ultimately I think that what it is it's just the reputation that Clint Eastwood had developed at the time that made people sleep on it, which sucks because it's still great, you
Yeah.
know? It
Yeah.
really is. The fact that we still got one more great Clint Eastwood movie after after American Sniper. And will his next and supposedly final movie be that good? Who knows? But I didn't watch Cry Macho when that came out, and I had no desire to either.
Me neither.
So yeah, all right. So I guess if that's your number 6, then we go right to
Your
right on to
pick.
my number 6, which is Matchstick Men. Funnily enough, that you mentioned it before. Yeah, I love this movie. I watched this movie for the first time a couple years ago, and it's great. It's Nicolas Cage and Sam Rockwell as con men who pull off again Heist of the Century. It's like Better Call Saul the movie before Better Call Saul came out, except until Nicolas Cage discovers that he has a daughter who out of nowhere, and he decides to start teaching her how to grift. And this causes a fraction in his relationship with Sam Rockwell until there is a couple of twists at the end that reveal that, oh, Rockwell may have been conning him the entire time. And like, I will admit, this isn't necessarily like one of the best demonstrations of Rockwell's acting, but it's just everything you love about him. Like, he's
Yeah.
got the dancing, he's got the goofiness, he's got the slickness, the slick charminess, but he's also got like, you know, some layers of sinisterness below the surface that he
Oh,
may
for
not be
sure.
letting you know. And just the way that he like that you hear the voiceover when he delivers the final note to Nick Cage after like he screws him over at the end, and it's just like, yeah, sorry, I kind of did all this to you. Sorry, have a nice life. And it's just so casual and
Yeah.
nonchalant about it. It's like he's just great, you know. And the way that he's doing like his stupid little dance at the beginning when he's like basically like coaching Nick Cage, and I go, this movie's great. And the fact that Ridley Scott directed it and people don't realize that Ridley Scott directed it, again, it's back when I'm like, man, just the early 2000s could not miss. I really, really enjoyed this movie. This is one of my favorite movies of 03. This is one of my favorite movies. This is one of my favorite comment movies. Yeah, this movie's just great, you know, and Rockwell is such a crucial part of it as well.
Mhm. Yeah, my number 5, Duncan Jones's Moon.
Wow, okay. Okay.
Finally saw this movie after
Yes, I
years.
did.
So did I. But,
Oh, I thought you'd seen this already.
no, I've seen bits and pieces of this movie over the years. I rented it off of Netflix years ago, and I just never. I had to return it. So because I think I slept during the first time I watched it because I was super tired. But like I finally got to it this year. It's a very good movie. I think I might like Source Code more, but like this is a better looking movie, and Sam Rockwell is phenomenal in this film. Deserves all the accolades he got for this. He shows so much range. He has to play so many different sides of the same guy or clone or whatever, and it's like you could probably write so many conspiracy theory about this movie and like about the story and everything. Is be like, wait, is the real Sam dead? Because like near the end of the fucking spoiler alert, I don't care. I'm gonna ask you straight up. The Sam that we hear near the end of the movie, like who's like with the daughter,
Yeah.
is that the real Sam?
That I assumed was the real Sam.
Or did we already see the real Sam die, and that might have been another clone that the government or whatever had on backup to be the backup? Like that it just makes you think like that. And
Well,
Sam
let
Rockwell
me put it this
is
way.
so
I'll get
good.
to it when I get to Moon on my selections, because Moon is on my selections.
Like when Sam Rockwell shows up as like the clone, the first clone that the main clone in the movie
Yeah.
that we see, like he's incredible.
Yes.
Like that's like he's just so charismatic, and like I don't understand, like a lot of people saw this movie, like, and you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
people took notice of it, and they still the biggest role he's gotten in Hollywood is fucking Poltergeist. Okay, move on.
Yeah. We'll get to. Well, I'll give my thoughts on that when we get to it on my selections. Is
Yes.
all that I will say. Moving on to my number 5, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. This is another one that I saw recently, and it's one where it's very strange. I don't say this too often about a lot of movies that I watch, but I feel like the movie that Rockwell is in versus the movie that all of his co-stars are in, like Drew Barrymore, George Clooney, Julia Roberts, and all those guys, I feel like I'm watching two separate movies at times, which I guess if you think about it is the point of the movie, because the whole point of the movie is how Rockwell's character, Chuck Barris, was a guy who felt like an outsider basically everywhere that he went. And it's such a weird and different kind of a movie, right? It's a thriller about a guy who doubled as a game show host and an assassin for the CIA. I guess where my problems with the movie come in is the movie does not, I will say straight up, does not know how to be ambiguous about whether Rockwell was real or not. Because I feel like the purpose of it is like you're supposed to be questioning whether any of the CIA stuff that Rockwell talks about, because again, it's based off of an autobiography written by the real guy, actually happened. But the way that it's played out and displayed, it all play like there's nothing surrealist or crazy or trippy or anything that would clue the audience into thinking that those kill sequences are not real.
Right?
They play out in real time, which leads you to assume it's real. There's only one scene in the entire movie that makes you wonder, oh, is this all in his head? And that's the Clooney death scene. That's the only one, because they don't actually tell you how Clooney dies.
Yeah.
You just cut to it from above, and there's a shit ton of blood in the pool, and he's just dead. You know? So that whole bit and piece is confusing in and of itself, and it's still making me think about it. But again, how the power of Rockwell, where he is basically just this horn dog guy who kind of stumbles his way into fame and then gets recruited by the CIA and kind of just goes along with it until he decides not to. And then he just writes a book on it after he like catches a CIA double agent, you know? Even the scene with Julia Roberts at the end is so preposterous. It's like, this should not work at all. And because Julia Roberts is acting like she's in a fucking 1940s noir, and Rockwell is just being Rockwell. I'm like, this shouldn't be working at all. And the fact that Rockwell is making it work almost single-handedly shows how good he is. So yeah, it's a very interesting movie. I don't necessarily know if I love it as much, but it's fascinating to say the least, and it is carried superbly by Rockwell.
Good pick. I'm going to talk about that soon. Number 4, probably the most less known movie on my list. Jerry and Tom, directed by Saul Rubinek. And you're like, whoa, what is this, a Tom and Jerry knockoff? No, it's not. It's a really dark crime hitman movie that spans through the years of the relationship of these two hitman partners played by Joe Mantegna and Sam Rockwell, very young Sam Rockwell, one of his first like bigger roles, I would say. And he plays such like a naive and kind of spirited young killer with a super sociopathic side. And it's not, and I kind of feel bad for my numbers 4 and 3 that I have to rewatch this because I haven't seen this for years. And I know I love it because I know like the performances are great because I've seen clips since, and I know I love this, but I want to re-experience this because the first time I saw it and seeing Sam Rockwell's arc for the first time, I was like, oh my God, he's brilliant in this. How is this not? I think I saw it on Netflix the first time, like instant. Like I couldn't believe. I don't know how this is so under the radar because this performance rules. But like I don't know. Maybe this is just a me movie, but it has a phenomenal cast. As Maury Chaykin shows up, Ted Danson, Charles Durning, William H. Macy, Peter Rieger, Sarah Pauly, and Saul Rubinek himself. Does a hell of a job directing this movie. He should have directed more movies, that fucking guy. But what was the line in True Romance? He's like, you're like a son
You're
to
like
me.
a son, and you stab me in the heart. The line that the rewatchable, one of many lines that the rewatchables
and
butchered.
You stab me in the heart.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fucking great.
Yes. Oh man, I want to rewatch True Romance. There's so many movies that when I'm done with school, I'm just gonna like have a list of movies I just binge.
Yeah, Joe Mantegna is such a great like sort of audience avatar. He's like, he's a terrible guy, but like seeing him witness Sam Rockwell's like eventual like dark path really.
It's one of those things where it's like he's evil,
Yeah.
but then he watches Rockwell and it's like, oh wow, that guy makes me do things that I would never do.
I created a monster. It's
Yeah.
like, and it's a wild movie. I remember. So yeah, moving on to you.
Yes. All right.
Check that
My
out,
number
people.
4.
Jerry and Tom. Good
Yeah,
movie.
Jerry and Tom. That's one that I was trying to hit, and I again just did not have time. The fact that I was able to get the 3 movies for Rockwell out of, or rather the 3 movies out of the way that I was impressive to say the least. All right, my number 4. It's probably a little high, but fuck it. This is the movie that made me aware of who he was. And again, a villain role that is so goddamn underrated, but the people who knew so much so that they finally are bringing it back. Justin Hammer, Iron Man 2.
Oh, yeah.
Again, early on, this is still, to this day, the most slept on, most overhated MCU movie. To the point where, like, some of the shit that people say about this movie, I'm like, are we watching the same movie? Now, granted, there's a lot of MCU movies that I like more than others. I love The Incredible Hulk. I love Avengers Age of Ultron. I love the first Thor, over a lot of other MCU movies that people, say are great. But I'm like, really? The first 2 Tom Holland Spider-Man movies are not that good. Thor Ragnarok, also kind of overrated, just a little bit. But that's just me. This fucking movie. First of all, you brought up the fact that Rockwell almost had Iron Man over Downey Jr., which, like you said, the alternate realities and fucking alternate universes that could have spawned in general. But, like, man, he's not even the main villain in this. He's the secondary villain. Kind of, sort of at the halfway point. But, like, Mickey Rourke is the main villain in this. And the fact that Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer is consistently the main takeaway. Like, no, even diehard comic book fans didn't really know or care about who Justin Hammer was. He was like a D-tier Tony Stark villain that didn't even actually have a cool suit that he wore. He was always the asshole that would employ villains to do his dirty work for him. And the fact that Sam Rockwell made him as awesome of a villain, like, he doesn't need to make this guy endearing. He's just doing his usual Rockwell charm. But, like, just the scene where he's presenting all the weapons to Rhodey, when he's doing his typical dance, when he comes out on stage at the Iron Man Expo, like, he's so good that they didn't bring him back for like fucking 14 straight years until What If season 2, and he's one of the best MCU villains, and he's just
one
fucking
short, right? He was like in that.
Yeah, he was in the one short, but like, how many people actually saw that? Aside from you.
Okay.
But yeah, no, Iron Man 2. I love this movie. Like I said, I had to have it this high on this list for a reason. Because like I said, this is the movie that introduced me to him. Also, again, the MCU movie that features a cameo from Elon Musk as well, which is really funny in hindsight.
Yeah, and Tony Stark calls Elon Musk a pedophile.
Was he that far off? Was he that far off? Who knows?
All right, my number 3 is Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. And no, it's not about Elon Musk, okay? It's about Chuck Barris, who I guess insisted I think he's still alive. He still insists that this is not fake. Like, he did this. How he's not arrested for claiming,
or in prison, or dead,
or institutionalized, that too, or institutionalized or something, because that's insane to actually just like be like,
how the fuck is Jeffrey Epstein? Speaking of, how the fuck is Jeffrey Epstein dead, but Chuck Barris is still alive? They must have just forgotten about him.
Like, what? Like, how did he is this the? I have to rewatch this movie, but I have to look back into the story, because did he just like write this book? Is this like the first like time like he said that, like he admitted like, oh yeah, or was he like at a party once and he's just like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm a hitman for the CIA? How would everyone just go like, they would have been all coked up, so they probably, the likelihood of them remembering would have been very low. But still. I know, yeah, but it's insane to me. There's the conception of this entire thing. But Sam Rockwell is like brilliant casting for this, because this could have been Ben Stiller. It was between him and Ben Stiller. That screen. Ben Stiller in this part. This is a completely different movie. Yes, it would have been, but a little bit, I would say. But Sam Rockwell, this is another one where it's just like, how did people not see this and go like, yeah, he should be like the next big star, instead of like, oh yeah, he should be like the third lead and everything. Like, no, like there's like, he's so good and like dynamic, and he disappears into this character too. He has great chemistry with Drew Barrymore, who I love and would still marry. Yes, I think today's her birthday too. It is actually 49. Happy birthday. Oh, 20 years older than me.
Look at that.
Oh my god, I would still. Anyway, really good movie. Yeah, I agree. It's not perfect, but he definitely is one of the reasons why you keep watching it. And it's one of his most dynamic and like magnetic performances, and that's why I have it so high.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will just say right now, my 3 and 2 are the same as your 2 and 1. I believe in that order as well. Because my number 3 is Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri,
Mhm.
and my number 2 is Seven Psychopaths. So if you want, we could just talk about those movies at the same time because I know that they're next for you anyway. So and then we'll just talk about my number 1 when we get to it, which you'll probably be able to figure it out what that was by now. But
Yeah.
yeah, so Three Billboards Outside
Three
Ebbing.
Billboards.
Yeah, Three Billboards. Yeah, this is the movie that like started the whole Rockwell's a racist trade. And
Mhm.
man, it's just the narrative that surrounded this movie when it came out is still like ridiculous. Like I remember getting into full-fledged fights with my film professors back when this was like it was this versus Shape of Water for like best picture that year. And I'm like, how is this even a competition? One's like a good, competently made movie, and the other one like barely scrapes by as a fucking weirdo like porno chick flick, and the rest of my professors are like, oh, you don't get it. It's all about, the love and homage to cinema. And I'm like, okay, but who gives a shit if the movie's not good? Three
Yeah.
Billboards, while problematic, and as we both said at the time, was the weakest of Martin McDonagh's 3 movies at the time.
Yeah.
It's still fucking great.
It is
And
great.
and
Yeah.
it's very interesting because in hindsight, I think that its statements on like kind of race relations, but also I've kind of aged well because because the thing that people missed about this is it really has nothing to do with race because the whole thing is that
Yeah.
if anything, it's all about how like people are becoming dissociated from each other because everybody is so busy with their own problems and dilemmas that nobody has time to deal with like larger than life problems, which of course causes the surviving single mother played by Frances McDormand of the recently deceased to to commit these acts of progressively growing, disruption and terrorism to the point where the movie almost kind of shoots itself in the foot because when they do the one flashback to the daughter, who is played once again in a thanklessly by Catherine Newton, right? If I'm remembering that correctly.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's just cut that scene out.
It's so goddamn unlikable that you're almost like, are we sure that she misses this daughter that badly? But like, I get the purpose of the scene. The purpose of the scene was to show that Frances McDormand was again like so preoccupied with everything at the time that she didn't appreciate the time further with her daughter. Which again, might have wanted to get a different actress to play her if you wanted to actually, make us appreciate and like feel bad for that character being dead. But Rockwell, we haven't even gotten to Rockwell yet. Rockwell is the guy who was set up not as the bad guy, but as like kind of like the epitome of all the problems in the town, and that he is so concerned with himself. And what's interesting too is the fact that he's made out to be a racist, but we don't actually see, other than like, I think he has like one N-word drop, but other than that, we don't see him actually being a racist. So the movie is already hampering all of these expectations and negative stigmas on this character who at the worst is like a little lazy and is a typical cop. And after undergoing like a really like serious, like life-threatening situation, ends up like becoming a better cop in hindsight, which ends up leading to still one of the most confusing endings ever, which I still have to revisit that movie. I haven't seen it since it came out. But Rock, this is the movie that won him his Oscar, and rightfully so, because he's phenomenal in this. And I mean, take it from here. This is your number 2.
Yeah, he's terrific in this because he's not hateful in it, even though there's like the first act of this, like he just comes off more as like spiteful than actually hateful because of how like naive he comes across. And like even Woody Harrelson like sees a lot of potential in that character. And by the time he finally has to like buck up and become more of a detective, he becomes a much more richer and interesting character.
Yes, and
Sam
you see
Rockwell,
it happen in real
yeah,
time as well, which is very interesting. You almost never see that.
Sam Rockwell's so good at like playing every like different tone of this performance, like and he gets so much sympathy. The scene between him and Caleb Landry Jones in the hospital
Yeah.
is almost as riveting as the scene where he knocks him out of the roof and punches the Kerry Condon in the face. Like it's like it's an amazing.
That was
performance.
Kerry Condon. Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's my second favorite performance, but this is fuck it. This is the Oscar that he deserved for Seven Psychopaths.
Yeah.
Billy
Yeah.
Bickle is my number one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like from top to bottom, that performance is just so memorable.
Yeah. Like I said,
funny,
these movies do kind of tie together as well.
It does, but like and he's like a more like so obviously psychopathic, obviously, but it's just such a like an amazing, instantly iconic performance for me. He has one of the best scene in any Sam Rockwell movie is that scene where he's like pitching the ending,
Oh yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
shootout, like to Colin Farrell, and every character shows up indiscriminately. Like it's just hysterical, and that's one of the best scenes I ever saw in a theater. Like it's so good, and he deserved a nomination for that. He got an Indie Spirit for it, but this is arguably like the definitive Sam Rockwell. It has every quality. He dances in this like
Of course.
briefly, I think. So like, yeah, he's and then he's just complimented by the best dialogue he's ever had.
Yes.
By Martin McDonagh, who's like, this is, in my opinion, his best film, even over In Bruges. I know, hot take. Seven Psychopaths is like just the total Dusty movie. Has everything I want. It was like the perfect, intentional or not, Tarantino homage.
Yeah.
But it is. That was the perfect movie for me at 16 to see.
Yeah, and I will say, like I said, I will say that for me, Seven Psychopaths, like I said, it is very Tarantino-esque, and it's a lot sloppier for me than In Bruges. In Bruges to me is like a perfect movie, which is why I have Seven Psychopaths only number 2. But it's right there.
But I just want to say it's annoying that Martin McDonagh is apparently bothered by that comparison, even though
he is. Why?
I don't know, but because like it's so baffling to me, that sentiment that he supposedly has, because from the very first scene of this movie between Stuhlbarg,
it's so obvious.
Like it wears it on its sleeve.
Yeah, and I remember I watched this movie actually the night before I saw Three Billboards, and I'm like, from the moment that opening scene happens, I'm like, oh, this movie knows what it's doing. I'm like, it's got the killing, it's got the crazy kooky supporting characters, it's got the madcap face, it's got the dialogue, it's got the Hollywood illusion
references. Yeah,
exactly. The thing that I love about describing Sam Rockwell movies to people is the thing about not even just the movies themselves, but the characters. It's just how I'm able to describe the character. I remember actually, so the guy I was telling you about who I go to school with, Andrew, the guy who used to work for SNL. I ran into him on the subway this morning, and I was actually, going over. I was telling him we were doing Rockwell, and he's like, "Oh, Rockwell's one of my favorite actors." I'm like, really? So I was telling him about all the movies I'd seen. I told him about Moon, which he loves, and and then I told him about Confessions of a Dangerous Mind and Seven Psychopaths. And he's like, "Oh, I'm like, what's Seven Psychopaths?" I'm like, "Oh, let me tell you." I'm like, "You're a Martin McDonagh guy because you love In Bruges." He's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, so picture this. Colin Farrell is a struggling screenwriter, right? Who's trying to figure out how to come up with an ending for his latest movie, right? Sam Rockwell and Christopher Walken are dog nappers. Rockwell, who happens to be his best friend, the first scene you see of Rockwell in this movie is him shooting the woman who he's staying with, which may or may not have actually happened. But because this movie just evolved into like a one-part madcap chase where, of course, the idiots steal the wrong guy's dog, and the wrong guy's a fucking psychopath, like Woody Harrelson. And then end up...
It was originally Mickey Rourke.
It was originally Mickey, which is even crazier. But so then they have to go on the run, and all the while, Rockwell is trying to come up with different ways to help Colin Farrell come up with his ending. And throughout the time, Colin Farrell realizes that he's unintentionally based several characters off of several instances in his real life. Also, one that really interestingly ties into Christopher Walken's character. And again, just some of the funniest and craziest moments. I'll still never forget the moment where Walken and Zeltzko Ivanek are going back and forth, and he's like, surrender. He's like, no. And he's like, but I have a gun. He's like, I don't care. Like, just amazing moments like that.
They sold that in the trailer.
Yeah.
That was the big laugh moment before the title shows up. And
right.
If I'm not mistaken, that had such a good that should be like
fantastic trailer. Like one of the all-time trailers.
That guy, you describing your friend saying like, "Oh, he's one of my favorite actors." What's Seven Psycho? Like, how do people not watch Seven?
Because people are not obsessed with movies the way that we are. But like I said, I digress. Like I said, this is 1000% when I saw this movie, I'm like, how the fuck did Rockwell not get nominated for this? It's like the 2012 supporting actor Oscar race, the amount of people that are snubbed, right, of Actors Hall of Fame that we've gone over, right? Fucking no DiCaprio or Sam Jackson for Django. No Rockwell for Seven Psychopaths. No Ezra Miller for Perks of Being a Wallflower.
No Dwight Henry.
Right. No Dwight Henry. Like for Beast of the Southern Wild. Like the amount of snubs that you're, and for some of the most typical generic choices. Like Alan Arkin for the one line in Argo is still hilarious to me. And like Tommy Lee Jones.
I said, "Oh, go fuck yourself."
Yeah, it's like, and Tommy Lee Jones for Lincoln is like, it's, oh my god, it's fucking insane. But yeah, Seven Psychopaths, it's great, it's awesome. So that's your,
It's his
yeah,
best character, Billy Bickle. I mean, come
yes,
on. And like he has the best dialogue in the movie. He's fucking hysterical in it. It's his most memorable character to me. I'm gonna fight hard for this, Dominic. This is his best performance.
yeah,
I do not care. This is the performance he should be remembered for. 3 billboards he's sensational in. That's why
yes.
it's my number 2. But I appreciate your number 1 pick. It's Moon,
Yeah,
obviously,
my
right?
number one is Moon. Yeah, and I'll get into why.
Explain.
I will explain. So, like I said, for the longest time, Seven Psychopaths was my number one, and it was a no-brainer. But I just watched Moon, finished watching Moon, I should say, this morning. I started last night, I finished it this morning. Because, man, I will say, it's tough for movies in general to make me feel feelings now. Not saying that they don't, but again, I've seen a lot of movies. And it's, in general, it's very, very tough for a movie to hit me. At least of all, a sci-fi movie, because sci-fi in general is one that I'm always more interested in the mystique of the world rather than the conflict of the characters. It's very, very hard for me to make for me to feel something for sci-fi characters. And the thing about it is that this is a movie that is filled to the brim with sci-fi tropes that I've seen 1.5 million times before. It's got a setting, right, that I've seen 1 million times before. You know, basically one guy, basically in an isolated setting, completely by himself, and having very, very limited interaction with anything outside of, like I said, a very obvious 2001: A Space Odyssey homage robot voiced by Kevin Spacey. And
Very good.
I mean, obviously, once the clones are revealed, and I know that it's a movie that involves clones, but I'm wondering, I'm like, okay, where is this going to go? You know, I don't really know what it's about, right? He's kind of stranded on this one moon base. Basically, he's solo in charge of maintaining, you know, the mining for this one specific mineral that is basically like the power core for like Earth in the future and whatnot. Then he discovers that there's clones of him and whatnot. And then I realize, I'm like, shit, this is one of those moral, ethical ramifications of life cycle movie, which is where you clearly had one version of the character, that being Sam Bell, who signed up for this thing and was cloned. And basically the whole thing is that, right, it's a 3-year contract, right? And his character is coming to the end of it, right? But at the end of every 3 years, right, the character starts to get sick, and then he goes into his escape pod chamber, and then he dies, and he's replaced by another one. And I realize, I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, this is all about like the moral and ethical ramifications of like what exactly happens when you start treating human beings as disposable. And because that's literally it, right? There's an infinite number of clones of him, as was revealed in the base. He lives with the same set of memories that just get re-downloaded and implanted in each new clone, right? The only reason why the movie happens is because there's a fuck up where they think that the one version of him dies outside the lunar rover, but then he survives and makes it back by the time they've already woken up a new clone. So it's 2 clones in one setting, right? Which the company has to come in and do some mop-ups afterwards. And the fact of like them both like representing different elements of the same person, and then in real time realizing it's like, holy shit, there's this entire life that I have that I've missed, when he finally makes contact with the daughter at the end, and you hear the one version in the background, right? Now, like I said, there's a lot of questions that opens up in terms of, is that really the real Rockwell? You know, was this part of the whole scientific experiment? But like, there was just something about like watching him like slowly fall apart, and you literally, like, not even just like a thing mentally, like mentally and physically fall apart, where you again, because for me as a giant sci-fi fan, I'm like, I'm like, I know exactly what this is. This is literally, like I said, this is homaging 1.5 million different science fiction movies. You know, like I said, it's the Blade Runner thing, where it's like the replicants only have a life cycle of 4 years. These clones only have a life cycle of about 3 years. That's when when the cellular degeneration starts. And there was just something about that and the way that Rockwell played it that just hit me so hard. Like, hit me so hard. Because, like, I've seen him be endearing. I've seen him be charming. I've seen him be all that. But I think this is the first time that I've ever seen him play just truly broken. And not like a funny, like, kind of a revenge way. Just somebody who realizes there is something about watching a performance where an actor when an actor delivers, where they realize the inevitability of their situation. There's something that's really poignant, and there's something that's really, really powerful about that. And it's something that very, very few actors can pull off. And the fact that, again, he's got some clout, to say the least. But like, the fact that this was his first movie, and the fact that he trusted Rockwell, no question.
You keep cutting out.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi right here. So we'll wrap this up relatively quickly. You can still hear me, right?
No, not really.
Uh, 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 hang on. Just get my Wi-Fi. A second to have to come back and top and listen. Can you hear me?
No, you keep going in and out like a robot.
Damn it. Let me. Or you stay in the top out and come back.
Broken cyborg. That's what you sound like. I'll cover the rest of the show. Okay.
Yeah, do it.
Come back. Go away and come back. Get off and come back. Live surprises, everyone. Okay, so Dominic had Moon out of the way. I just want to clarify for my Seven Psychopaths comment. I don't mind Martin McDonagh doing the homage to Tarantino because it's the best homage to Tarantino since Go, directed by Doug Liman, you know? So, all right, looking at our lists combined, I believe we have 6 in common, right? We have Seven Psychopaths, Three Billboards, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, Moon, Richard Jewell, and Galaxy Quest. So I'm fine with those being the top 6, okay? I'm fine with that. But the ones that I had on my list that he didn't were Jerry and Tom, Mr. Right, Snow Angels, and The Sitter. I believe he had Iron Man 2, The Bad Guys, Matchstick Men, and what was the other one? The Green Mile. Okay. So we're not putting in the Green Mile. Okay. I'm sorry. And we're not putting in fucking Matchstick Men. Okay. But I'll give you the Iron Man 2 and I'll give you the Bad Guys. Okay. I will give you those. Totally. And then I'll take The Sitter and I'll take Jerry and Tom, okay? But to rank these correctly, I think it's fair to put Jerry and Tom at 10 because it's the least known. You know what I mean? Number 9, that should be The Sitter, right? I think, right? It'd be The Sitter. Or no, I put it. No, give it to the Bad Guys instead. Yeah, I'll give it to the Bad Guys. Yeah, we'll give it to the Bad Guys at 9. My mistake. The he's very good in that. He's like the George Clooney of that movie and that little DreamWorks movie. It should have been a little bit better. Number 8, The Sitter, because he's very memorable in that and he's fucking hilarious. Number 7, Iron Man 2. That was my number 11 pick. I think that is an underrated Marvel antagonist, and I think that's a fair placement for it.
All right.
Right?
We back? We good?
Yeah, you're good now.
Wait, yeah, I
Okay,
just had to reboot. I haven't had that happen in a while. I had to reboot my
so
Wi-Fi
I've
router.
I've
Yeah.
decided by proxy. Okay, I decided number 10
Okay.
is Jerry and Tom.
Okay.
Number 9 is the Bad Guys.
Okay. Well,
Number
actually, so real quick before we get to it. So, like I said, sorry to undo your progress there. I'm sure you're making great progress. Like I said, so we got 6 in common. Let me just run through it. So we have
I know
Moon.
we have. I covered that already.
All right,
I
perfect.
covered all of this.
All right, perfect, awesome. So you covered that. Excellent. All right, so you have Jerry and Tom. What's it called? I was gonna say as well. So for my choices, I definitely want Iron Man 2 in there for sure.
I know you do. That's number 7.
Yeah, you
That's
know I
where
do.
That's
So
where I cut it off,
yep.
Dominic.
All right, so number 7 is where you cut it off. So and then what other ones did you? So we have Iron Man 2, and we have we have Jerry and Tom for
The
sure.
Sitter at 8, Jerry and Tom at 10, the Bad Guys at 9.
Okay. Only thing I was gonna say is I would like to swap the Bad Guys out for the Green Mile. That is my only ask.
All right.
Everything else we're good with.
All right, then move Green Mile to 10,
All
Jerry
right.
and Tom to 9.
Sweet. All right. So number 10, the Green Mile. Thank you again for taking over. And apologies, guys. Again, that hasn't happened in a while. Hopefully, it won't ever again. Yeah. Right. All right. So
6
9,
should
Jerry
be
and Tom.
Galaxy Quest.
Wait. 1 second. So what was 8?
8 was the Sitter.
Okay. 8, the Sitter, and then 7, Iron Man 2. All right.
Yeah. 6 would be Galaxy Quest, right?
Yes. 6 would be Galaxy Quest.
5 would be Richard Jewell.
Yep.
4 would be Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Yep.
3 would be Moon. 2 would be three Billboards. 1 would be Seven Psychopaths.
Richard Jewell for Confessions. Only thing, last thing. Can we put Moon at 2 over 3 Billboards?
No.
All right.
No,
I disagree. I know, but listen, for my Wi-Fi cutting out, you get it.
For him winning the Oscar, rightfully.
Yeah, for him winning the Oscar, yeah, that gets it. All right. Yeah, my apartment has slowly been falling apart throughout this last year, but that's fine. All right, so with that being said, Dustin, once again, thank you again for holding it down while I was dealing with my technical difficulties. So, our fully built and assembled Sam Rockwell Hall of Fame. Number 10, The Green Mile, directed by Frank Darabont. Number 9, Jerry and Tom, directed by Saul Rubinek. Number 8, The Sitter, directed by David Gordon Green. Number 7, Iron Man 2, directed by Dean Pariseau. Number 6,
what?
Oh, sorry. Oh my God, Jon Favreau. What am I doing? I'm skipping ahead. My brain's out of it. Iron Man 2, directed by Jon Favreau. There we go. Number 6, Galaxy Quest, directed by Dean Pariseau.
There you go.
Getting my movies confused. Number 5, Richard Jewell, directed by Clint Eastwood. Number 4, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, directed by George Clooney. Number 3, Moon, directed by Duncan Jones. And number 2 and 1, both directed by Martin McDonagh. Number 2, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. And number 1, 7 Psychopaths.
Billy Bickle.
Yes, Billy Bickle, all the way, indeed. So with that being said, Dustin, thank you once again for joining me for another Actors Hall of Fame and for carrying it while my Wi-Fi crapped out on us. Like I said, American Buffalo. Fun fact, I actually did that scene in my acting class, and I actually played the part that Rockwell played on stage. I was the teach part, which Rockwell was. So yep. So that's another thing that Rockwell and I have in common. Dustin, where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
YouTube.com, Mr. G Movie Reviews, Dustin Mason on Letterboxd, Duster on Twitter.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, you can follow me at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms, at Official Talkin TV Podcast across all platforms. This episode will be live streamed and available on YouTube. And as always, people, 12 seasons in a short film, and watch more fucking movies. We'll see you guys next time. Real quick, Dustin, before we get out of here, who are we doing next month for the Actors Hall of Fame?
The Sandman.
The Sandman himself, Adam Sandler, whose movie Spaceman is dropping on Netflix the same weekend that Dune Part 2 comes out. Will anybody watch it? We will be covering him for sure that month. Like I said, we still got a lot of big names planned for this year, so you guys are going to want to stay tuned.
All that should have been brought to my attention yesterday.
Exactly. All that and more on the Talk TV podcast, guys. Thanks again. This has been the Actors Hall of Fame. We'll see you guys next time.